He built an empire worth billions, but one summer afternoon, he walked into his own store as a nobody. And what he saw that day broke his heart forever. The summer heat of Atlanta. Georgia shimmered across the glass panels of Davenport Gold & Co., one of the most luxurious jewelry boutiques in the South. Inside, the air smelled of jasmine candles and polished marble. The staff glided between glass counters, their smiles bright, their voices soft. But only when they were talking to the right people. A chauffeur opened the back door of a black SUV parked across the street. A man stepped out, not looking like the billionaire whose name glowed in gold letters on the store's sign. His clothes were old and wrinkled, jeans faded, sneakers scuffed. A sun-bleached baseball cap shadowed his face. His name was Elijah Davenport, CEO, philanthropist, and one of America's most influential black businessmen. But today, none of that mattered. He wasn't Elijah the billionaire. He was just Elijah, the ordinary man. Rumors had reached his ears that his staff treated rich customers like royalty and ignored the rest. He wanted to see for himself if the empire he built with honesty and pride had lost its soul. So, without his bodyguards or assistants, he walked into his own store, alone. The moment he entered, the temperature changed. Not the air, but the atmosphere. A tall manager named Victor Hale, sharp suit and sharper eyes, glanced at him once and immediately frowned. "Sir, this is a luxury store," Victor said curtly. "Do you have an appointment?" Elijah smiled faintly. "No, I just wanted to look around. Maybe buy something small for my niece." Victor's lips twitched. "Our prices aren't exactly small." The staff nearby smirked quietly. One woman in a red dress, dripping with diamonds, was handed a glass of chilled orange juice. Another customer was offered sparkling water. When Elijah asked politely, "Excuse me, could I get a glass of juice too?" "It's really hot out there." Victor raised a brow. "We don't serve refreshments to everyone," Victor said, voice dripping with arrogance. "It's reserved for our clients." A soft chuckle escaped from one of the clerks. Elijah felt the sting. Not as a billionaire, but as a man. He looked around slowly, memorizing faces, tone, and behavior. The laughter, the half-glances, the unspoken judgment. All of it painted a picture he'd hoped was false. He exhaled slowly and said, "I see. That's fair." Then he smiled gently and walked toward the corner of the store where cheaper gold chains were displayed. Victor muttered under his breath, "People like him shouldn't even walk in here." Elijah turned slightly, catching the reflection of Victor's face in the glass. He didn't say a word, but inside something began to break. He whispered quietly, almost to himself, "Let's see who you really are when no one's watching." Elijah stood quietly near the far end of the store, pretending to admire a tray of modest gold chains. The sales lights above glimmered off each link, casting tiny golden reflections across his weathered hands. He could feel eyes on him, judgmental, curious, dismissive. Every glance reminded him how differently the world treated a man once they thought he had nothing to offer. A pair of young employees whispered near the register. "Probably can't afford even a pendant," one of them muttered. Victor's voice sliced through their laughter. "Don't waste time. He's not a buyer." Elijah's jaw tightened. He wasn't angry, not yet. He just felt something colder than anger. Disappointment. He picked up a small locket, one that reminded him of his late mother. He turned to the counter. "Excuse me," he said gently. "Could I see the price on this one?" The clerk barely looked up. "That one starts at $1,200, she said flatly. "But if you're looking for something cheaper, we have costume jewelry next door." The words hit him harder than he expected. His mother used to tell him that money only changes people who were never humble to begin with. Now he wondered, had he hired people who'd never learned humility at all? As he placed the locket back, a soft voice came from behind. "Sir, would you like some water? It's pretty warm in here." Elijah turned. Standing there was a young woman, early 20s, brown skin glowing under the showroom lights, name tag reading Amara. She held out a chilled bottle of water. Her smile small but genuine. He hesitated. "You're the first person to ask me that," he said softly. Amara shrugged, glancing around to make sure the manager wasn't watching. "You looked thirsty. Doesn't cost me anything to be kind." He took the bottle, nodding gratefully. "Thank you, Amara." Her eyes widened for a split second. He had read her name tag. But she smiled again and whispered, "Don't mind them. Some people think respect has a price tag. It doesn't." From across the room, Victor's voice snapped. "Amara, what are you doing?" She froze, turning toward him. "Just giving a guest some water." Victor's expression darkened. "We don't serve guests. We serve clients. Get back to work." Elijah watched silently as Amara returned to the counter, her head slightly bowed but her dignity intact. That small act, offering a bottle of water, he said more about her soul than the entire staff's polished smiles combined. He stayed another 20 minutes pretending to browse. No one else spoke to him. Not one "can I help you?" or "welcome to Davenport Gold," only the quiet sting of judgment and whispered laughter. As he stepped outside into the Georgia heat, he took one last look through the window. Inside, Victor laughed with a rich couple, pouring juice into crystal glasses. Elijah took a deep breath and muttered, "They think they're serving gold, but all I see is rust." He pulled out his phone, scrolled to a contact labeled "Board Director, Davenport Headquarters." Tomorrow morning, he decided, none of them would see him as a nobody again. Morning light spilled across the skyline of Atlanta, bouncing off glass towers and the golden logo of Davenport Gold and Co. The store opened as trillion spaless floors, background jazz, and the subtle hum of wealth floating in the air. Victor Hale stood at the counter, sipping espresso and straightening his tie in the mirror. His arrogance looked well-ironed. He had already forgotten the poor man from yesterday and the one who dared to ask for juice. By noon, the door swung open. A convoy of black SUVs stopped outside. A chauffeur stepped out first, then 2 security men. Behind them came Elijah Davenport. No disguise this time. Tailored navy suit, gold cufflinks gleaming, confidence walking beside him like a shadow. Every head turned. Whispers rippled through the staff. The same Victor who had mocked him yesterday froze mid-sip, espresso trembling in his hand. "Good afternoon," Elijah said calmly, his deep voice echoing in the polished room. "Is the manager here?" Victor swallowed hard, forcing a nervous smile. "Mr. Davenport, I didn't know you were visiting today, sir." Elijah tilted his head slightly. Clearly, a cameraman from a local business magazine followed him inside, along with 2 board members from headquarters. "We're shooting a short feature on the Davenport brand," the cameraman said cheerfully. Mr. Davenport wanted to start at his flagship store. Victor's skin paled. His eyes darted toward the same counter where Elijah had stood yesterday. The same corner he'd been sent to. Elijah walked slowly through the store, his footsteps echoing like judgment. He stopped by the juice station where champagne glasses still glimmered. "So this is where the clients get their special treatment," he said softly. Victor stammered, "Sir, about yesterday. We were understaffed. It was—" Elijah turned, his eyes sharp but calm. Understaffed in kindness, perhaps. The staff froze in silence. Every word hit heavier than anger. He looked around the room, his tone steady but filled with quiet authority. "This store was built not just on gold, but on respect. My mother used to clean jewelry in her tiny kitchen, and she taught me something none of you seem to understand." He took a step closer to Victor. "Gold doesn't shine because it's expensive. It shines because it's cared for." Then his eyes softened. "And yesterday I saw how you care." The entire team stood still, guilt etched on every face. The cameraman lowered his camera, realizing this moment wasn't part of any scripted feature. Elijah's gaze drifted until it landed on Amara, the young woman from yesterday, standing quietly near the back. Her eyes widened as their gazes met. He smiled faintly. "Miss Amara," he said, "could you please step forward?" She hesitated, heart racing, then slowly walked up to him. "You were the only one who remembered humanity still exists in this building," Elijah said gently. "From this moment on, you'll be promoted to assistant manager of this store." Gasps echoed. Victor's face turned red. "As for you, Mr. Hale," Elijah paused, "you're dismissed. Effective immediately." The store went silent. Not even the background jazz dared to play. Elijah turned toward the camera. "If your business loses its heart," he said, "then all the gold in the world won't make it shine again." The store had fallen silent after Elijah's words. The same people who once whispered behind his back now stood frozen, guilt written across their polished faces. But Elijah didn't stay long. He turned to Amara and said quietly, "Come with me. We're going for lunch." Amara's eyes widened. "Sir, I'm still on my shift." Elijah smiled. "Not anymore. You're on mine." Outside, the Georgia sun glowed bright over Peachtree Street as the 2 of them stepped into his sleek black Rolls-Royce. The city blurred by, cafes, billboards, and faces that didn't know the man behind the tinted glass was worth billions. They stopped at a small soul food restaurant tucked between 2 old buildings. Maggie's Kitchen, a place that smelled like cornbread and memories. Elijah held the door open for her. "Best fried chicken in Atlanta," he said warmly. "My mom used to bring me here every Friday when I was a kid." Amara smiled nervously as they sat down. "I never thought I'd have lunch with my boss," she said, half joking. He chuckled. You're not having lunch with your boss. You're having lunch with a man who's still learning what kind of people he hires. The waitress brought them iced tea and cornbread. For a while, Elijah stayed quiet, looking out the window. You know, he said softly, I didn't grow up rich. My mom cleaned houses. My father worked double shifts in a car factory. I started selling scrap jewelry when I was 17, melting broken pieces into something new. That's how I learned life works the same way. You take what's broken and turn it into something that shines. Amara listened intently, her eyes reflecting quiet respect. And that's why you built Davenport Gold? He nodded. Yeah, but it wasn't about money. It was about proving that a man like me, a black man from the South Side, could build something beautiful, honest and fair. But somewhere along the way, I let comfort replace purpose. He stirred his tea slowly. When I walked into that store yesterday and saw how your manager treated people, I realized that my company had lost its reflection. Amara's voice was gentle. But you came to see it yourself. That says something. He smiled. Maybe. But it shouldn't take disguise and deception to see the truth. The waitress returned with 2 plates of fried chicken, collard greens and sweet potatoes. The smell filled the air, familiar and grounding. Elijah leaned back and sighed. My mom used to say, when you forget where you came from, you stop knowing where you're going. I think I finally understand what she meant. Amara smiled softly. Your mother sounds like a wise woman. She was, Elijah said, eyes glistening. She passed away before I built my first store. Every piece of gold I sold after that, I dedicated to her. Silence filled the booth. Not awkward, but heavy with emotion. Then Elijah looked up, his tone quiet but firm. Amara, I want you to help me rebuild this company. Not just its image, its soul. Her eyes widened. Me? He nodded. Yes, people like you remind me why I started this in the first place. For the first time in years, Elijah felt something he hadn't felt in his own empire. Hope. By the next morning, the city was buzzing. Not because of jewelry or gold, but because of a story. His story. A cell phone video from inside Davenport Gold & Co. had leaked online overnight. Someone had secretly filmed the moment Victor mocked Elijah, back when he was in disguise. In the video, Victor's tone was dripping with arrogance. We don't serve juice to everyone. It's for clients. The clip exploded across social media. Within hours, it was everywhere. On Twitter, YouTube, and morning news shows. Headlines screamed, Billionaire pretends to be poor and exposes his own staff's disrespect. Atlanta mogul tests humanity, finds hypocrisy instead. By 9 a.m., the PR department's phones wouldn't stop ringing. Stock analysts called it the most powerful marketing accident in years. Customers flooded the comments section with messages like, finally, a CEO who gets it. And that manager deserved it. Elijah watched the storm unfold from his penthouse balcony. Coffee in hand, expression unreadable. Amara stood beside him, nervously scrolling through the trending feeds. This wasn't supposed to go public, she said quietly. He nodded. I know, but maybe it was meant to. Her eyes lifted to him. You're not angry? Angry? He smiled faintly. The world just saw what I saw. The truth. Maybe that's the best thing that could have happened. He turned toward her, more serious now. But now comes the hard part. We can't just fire a few people and call it a day. We need to change what this company means. That afternoon, Elijah called an emergency meeting at headquarters. Reporters camped outside, cameras flashing as he walked in beside Amara, who now carried a new name badge reading, Assistant Manager, Flagship Branch. Inside the conference room, his executives sat around a long mahogany table, anxious and silent. Elijah stood at the head, no notes, no script. We built Davenport Gold to celebrate beauty. But beauty without heart is worthless, he began. Yesterday I saw arrogance where there should have been gratitude, privilege where there should have been pride, and I take responsibility for that. He looked around the room, his gaze steady. From today onward, every employee, from CEO to cashier, will go through empathy training. Every new hire will spend 1 week volunteering at shelters, hospitals, or food drives before they ever touch a sale. Murmurs filled the room. One executive whispered, Sir, that could hurt productivity. Elijah cut him off gently. If kindness hurts our profits, then we don't deserve profits. Silence. Amara watched him, her heart pounding with pride. He wasn't just rebuilding a company, he was redefining it. Later that night, as Elijah and Amara walked out of the building, reporters shouted questions. Mr. Davenport, what message do you want people to take from this? He paused at the steps, cameras flashing. His deep voice carried through the chaos. Never judge someone by the clothes they wear or the wallet they carry, he said. Because one day, the person you look down on might be the one signing your paycheck. The crowd erupted. Amara looked at him, smiling. That's going viral again, sir. Elijah laughed softly. Then maybe the world still loves a good lesson. But as he climbed into his car, he glanced back at the cameras, and a flicker of something darker crossed his face. Because while the world cheered him as a hero, he knew not everyone in his empire would forgive or forget. For a few days, the city couldn't stop talking about Elijah Davenport. The man who'd built a jewelry empire worth billions had become an unexpected hero. The billionaire with a conscience. Sales spiked. Media outlets praised his humility. Employees at other branches began quoting his viral line. If kindness hurts our profits, then we don't deserve profits. But not everyone celebrated. Inside the corporate tower, behind closed glass doors, Raymond, the senior operations executive, sat watching the news replay. His jaw tightened as he muted the TV. Raymond had been with Davenport Gold since the early days. He was ambitious, proud, and quietly bitter, especially. Now that a 20-something assistant manager was suddenly the company's symbol of integrity, he slammed his pen on the desk. A viral stunt, that's what this is, he muttered. And now she's the golden child. His assistant, nervously adjusting her glasses, said, "Sir, Mr. Davenport really seems to trust her." Raymond's tone turned cold. Trust can be broken. Meanwhile, Elijah was back at the flagship store, the same place that had once humiliated him. It looked different now. Staff greeted every customer warmly, no matter how they dressed. Free water and juice stood on a counter labeled Courtesy Corner. He smiled quietly. Progress. Amara joined him near the front desk. People are happier, sir. You can actually feel it. He nodded. Change doesn't happen from policy. It happens from example. And you were the spark. Amara blushed slightly. I just did what felt right. Elijah looked at her. Really looked. And for a second, the businessman faded and the human remained. That's exactly why I need you by my side, he said softly. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. A message from board member. Urgent. Check email now. He opened it. Attached was a document. A media tip. The subject line read, Scandal inside Davenport Gold. Insider leaks on CEO's secret favoritism. Elijah frowned. The email accused him of personally favoring Amara for promotion due to personal interest. Even included a blurred photo of them at Maggie's kitchen, the lunch. That had been innocent, now twisted into rumor. He felt the sting deep inside. He'd fought his whole life to be respected as a black businessman, to be seen for integrity, not scandal. Now someone was trying to stain that. Amara noticed his silence. Sir, everything okay? He looked at her, calm but distant. Just corporate nonsense. But later that night, as the city lights glowed beneath his penthouse window, he reread the message. Then again, and again. He knew exactly who would benefit from his downfall. Raymond had been waiting years for a crack in his armor. And now he'd found one. Elijah leaned back in his chair, whispering to himself, You can't build gold without heat. Let's see how hot this fire gets. 2 days later, the world flipped. The morning news that once called Elijah Davenport America's most inspiring CEO now used harsher words. Billionaire's secret affair? Favoritism, scandal rocks Davenport Gold. The photos plastered across every gossip site were the same. Elijah and Amara sitting at a small restaurant table, laughing over cornbread and iced tea. The headlines, however, twisted everything beyond truth. Commentators speculated. Anonymous insiders added fake quotes. Some accused Amara of using her innocent act to climb the ladder. Others painted Elijah as a hypocrite, a man preaching integrity while hiding personal secrets. By noon, the company's PR department was drowning. Board members panicked. Stock value dipped. Reporters camped outside the headquarters, shouting questions that cut deeper than knives. Mr. Davenport, is it true you promoted her because she's your girlfriend? Miss Amara, are you the reason Victor Hale was fired? Elijah's jaw tightened as he guided Amara past the cameras. He didn't answer. He just opened the car door, shielding her from the flashing lights. Inside the vehicle, silence filled the air, heavy, suffocating. Amara's voice finally broke it. Sir, maybe I should resign. Elijah turned sharply. No. Her eyes shimmered. People think I used you. The employees are whispering again. This time it's worse. I can't be the reason your company falls apart. He looked at her with quiet steadiness. Amara, if I let lies decide what kind of leader I am, then I've already failed. I know the truth. You know the truth. That's enough. She wiped a tear quickly. The truth doesn't sell as fast as gossip. He sighed. That's what they count on. But sometimes silence speaks louder than defense. That evening, Elijah sat alone in his penthouse office, city lights flickering outside the glass walls. On his desk lay 2 letters, one from the board, demanding a temporary leave for PR, recovery, and another from Amara. Handwritten, folded neatly. He opened hers first. Sir, thank you for believing in me when no one else did. I know my presence is now a burden to your image. I'm stepping away so the world stops talking about something that was never real. Amara. Elijah's heart clenched. He closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. The board's letter waited next, effective immediately. The board recommends you step down as active CEO until the investigation concludes. He chuckled bitterly. Investigation for kindness. He looked out the window at the city. The same. Streets where he once sold scraps of gold to survive. Everything I built, he whispered. And one rumor burns it faster than fire. Then his phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. You thought humility made you untouchable. Think again. He didn't need to guess. It was Raymond Cole. Elijah set the phone down, eyes narrowing. All right, Raymond, he muttered. You want to fight? You just got one. For 3 days, Elijah stayed out of the public eye. News anchors tore him apart. Social media, once his cheering crowd, turned into a storm of accusations and memes. Golden Hypocrite trended nationwide. But while the world judged him, Elijah wasn't hiding. He was investigating. Inside his private office, he sat across from Miles Turner, a digital security expert he trusted for years. Miles' laptop glowed with tracking software, lines of code racing across the screen. I traced the original email that sent the story to the press, Miles said. It didn't come from the media. It came from inside, your own corporate network. Elijah leaned forward, eyes sharp. Who? Miles hesitated. Executive access level. Someone high up. The IP leads straight to Raymond Cole's terminal. Elijah's jaw tightened. I knew it. Miles continued. And that anonymous photo? Taken from the restaurant's internal security camera. He must have paid someone at the restaurant to leak it. Elijah exhaled slowly, rage restrained beneath composure. So he built a lie using my truth. That afternoon, he called an emergency board meeting. The same members who once cheered his leadership now sat stiff, whispering about reputation damage and brand image. Elijah entered the room quietly, setting a folder on the table. I think it's time we talk about integrity, he began. Raymond sat across from him, smug confidence barely contained. I agree, he said. This company's future is at stake, Elijah. You should do what's best for the brand. Step aside until things calm down. Elijah opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, timestamps, and payment records. He slid them across the table toward Raymond. You're right, Elijah said softly. The company's future is at stake, especially when betrayal sits in this room. The color drained from Raymond's face. Elijah continued, his tone calm but piercing. You leaked those photos. You forged statements. You weaponized lies to destroy 2 innocent people. Raymond stood abruptly. You can't prove... Elijah interrupted by pressing a button on the conference screen. A video played. Security footage of Raymond meeting a journalist at a downtown cafe. Sliding over a USB drive. Gasps echoed. Elijah looked him dead in the eye. You didn't just try to ruin me, Raymond. You tried to ruin her. A woman who showed more humanity and one act of kindness than you did in your entire career. Raymond's composure shattered. You think people will still trust you after this circus? You're not a saint, Elijah. You're just another man hiding behind his money. Elijah's voice dropped low. Maybe, but the difference is, I don't hide behind my hate. Security entered moments later. The board sat frozen as Raymond was escorted out, shouting curses all the way. When silence returned, Elijah turned to the board. I built this company to honor my mother's name, and I will not let greed destroy what decency created. He walked out before anyone could reply, his heart heavy. The victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like survival. That evening, he sat alone on a park bench overlooking the Atlanta skyline. The world was quiet now. But one thought haunted him. Even when you win the truth, you still lose something along the way? He looked at his phone, Amara's number on the screen. Thumb hovering but never pressing call. 3 days after Raymond's downfall, Elijah stood outside a small cafe tucked in a quiet corner of downtown. Atlanta, bean in bloom. It wasn't one of his businesses. No cameras, no PR team. Just peace and coffee. Inside, behind the counter, stood Amara Fields, her curly hair pulled back, eyes tired but calm. She had quit her job at the gold shop days ago, The scandal had cost her reputation too. Customers whispered, and coworkers stopped talking when she entered. When Elijah walked in, she froze. For a moment, her heart stopped. Not out of fear, but disbelief. The man in front of her wasn't the humble stranger she once helped. He was the Elijah Kane, billionaire, CEO, the face plastered across every news headline. "Elijah," she whispered, the name trembling off her lips. He nodded, quiet and remorseful. "Hi, Amara." A silence settled between them. Thick, heavy, full of everything unsaid. Amara crossed her arms. "So it was you. The man who sat in that chair, who asked for a glass of juice, who said he couldn't afford gold. That was all just a test?" Elijah took a deep breath. "It wasn't meant to be a test. I wanted to see how people treated someone they thought had nothing." Her eyes glistened. "And what did you find?" He swallowed hard. "That money changes everything, except hearts like yours." Amara turned away, blinking back tears. "Do you have any idea what your experiment did to me? I lost my job. People laughed at me. Said I only helped you for attention." Elijah's voice softened. "I know, and I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. You were the only person who saw me and not my wallet." She looked at him then, anger fading into something quieter. "You think apologies can fix everything?" He shook his head. "No, but maybe truth can." Elijah stepped closer and placed a small envelope on the counter. Inside was a check, but she didn't touch it. He said, "It's not for silence. It's not charity. It's an offer. I want you to run my new foundation, the Heart Project. It's about teaching kindness in workplaces. Starting with my own." Amara blinked, caught off guard. "You're serious?" He smiled faintly, dead serious. "You changed how I see people." "Amara, you reminded me that wealth means nothing if it makes you forget compassion." For the first time, she smiled, a small, cautious smile that carried both pain and peace. "I don't want your money, Elijah," she said softly, "but I'll take the job, because I believe people can change, even billionaires." Elijah chuckled, eyes moist. "Then maybe there's hope for all of us." As the cafe filled with quiet morning light, the two sat together at a corner table. Not CEO and employee, not billionaire and barista, just two souls trying to heal what the world had broken. Outside, the city hummed with traffic and chatter, but inside that cafe, it felt like time had paused. A rare, beautiful silence filled with forgiveness. That night, news broke again, but this time not about scandal. The headlines read, "Billionaire Elijah Kane launches Heart Project to redefine corporate kindness." But neither of them watched the news. They were too busy laughing over coffee, the way strangers do when they finally see each other for who they really are. 2 months later, the ballroom of the Atlanta Civic Center glittered under chandeliers as hundreds gathered for the launch of the Heart Project Foundation. CEOs, journalists, employees, even community workers as filled the room. The same cameras that once tried to destroy. Elijah now pointed at him with anticipation. But Elijah wasn't the same man they used to know. Gone was the tailored arrogance, replaced by quiet conviction. He stepped up to the microphone, his voice steady but full of emotion. "When I was young," he began, "my mother worked 2 jobs and still found time to offer our neighbor a plate of food every night. She used to tell me, kindness isn't something you give when it's easy. It's something you give when no one's watching." He paused, letting the words sink in. "I built a company that sold gold, but I forgot the value of heart. One day, I walked into my own store dressed as an ordinary man, and I saw how people treated someone they thought had nothing. I saw judgment, pride, and cruelty. But I also saw one person, one brave woman, who gave without expecting anything back." All eyes turned to Amara, sitting near the front row, tears glimmering but proud. Elijah continued, "That moment changed me, because real worth isn't in what shines on the outside. It's in what you do when nobody's clapping." The crowd sat in silence, moved. He raised a hand, gesturing toward a banner behind him, the Heart Project, building wealth through compassion. "This foundation isn't about money. It's about reminding the world that we don't need another billion-dollar brand. We need billion-dollar hearts. Every employee, every boss, every human deserves respect, not because of what they wear, but because of who they are." Applause thundered through the hall. Elijah stepped down from the stage and walked straight to Amara. Cameras followed, but he didn't care. He reached her, smiled, and said softly, "I couldn't have done this without you." She smiled back. "You just needed to remember who you were." Outside the building, the night sky shimmered over Atlanta's skyline. Elijah looked up and whispered quietly, "Mama, I finally get it. Amara joined him on the steps, watching the city lights flicker below. "You know," she said, "I think your mother would be proud." He nodded, eyes glistening. "No, she'd be proud of you." A gentle breeze passed through, the kind that feels like peace after a long storm. As the two walked away, the city buzzed around them, full of noise, ambition, and people chasing gold. But somewhere between the chaos and the calm, Elijah Kane had learned something priceless. That sometimes, to find the richest version of yourself, you have to lose everything that shines.